Good morning. It is Thursday, the 10th of March. A very warm welcome to you. We continue the story of Joseph and all of his problems that come his way. Genesis, again, we continue with that. Genesis 39. We finished yesterday with 37. We jump over 38, chapter 38, because we, in a sense, I think, are following the story of Joseph here. And 38 is the rather tragic circumstance of Judah heading off from the family, marrying, having multiple sons, rather wicked sons, and he finds a daughter-in-law, Tamar, for the first son, I think his name is, and Tamar marries and he proves to be a wicked man, so he dies very quickly, and Tamar has to marry the next son, etc., all the way through. And eventually Judah even rejects Tamar, and she sets out to beguile him, and he ends up having a child by her. So rather a sordid story in scripture about this man, Judah. But back to Joseph. He is in Egypt. He is sold as a slave to Potiphar, who is the captain of the guard, a senior part of the bureaucracy under Pharaoh. And Joseph does very well at his job. Scripture says God is with Joseph, and everything he puts his hand to goes well. And so Potiphar's household begins to prosper, and Potiphar trusts him more and more. Unfortunately, Potiphar's wife is not such a caring person, and she rather takes a fancy to Joseph. He's described as being a young man, strapping, well-built, and she invites him to bed. And he refuses, and she invites him to bed. And he refuses, and she does this repeatedly until one day, presumably in a fit of lust, she grabs him by his jacket. There's no one else in the house. And she grabs him by his jacket, and Joseph squirms out the jacket and runs away. And Potiphar's wife then turns and keeps the jacket, and she turns against Joseph, and she uses the fact that he is of a different race and that he is successful, perhaps, and she is not, and she accuses him of attempted rape. From the story in Scripture, it is quite apparent that that is not at all true. If anything, she is the attempted rapist, and Joseph is made to suffer as a result. So he is sent to jail. But again, God is with him in jail, and the captain of the guard in jail recognizes this and puts Joseph in charge of the prisoners. And again, whatever Joseph does turns out to be incredibly prosperous. The takeout from all of this is that poor Joseph, I'm rather glad I'm not Joseph, and you must be glad you're not a Joseph. But if we are faithful to God, he is faithful to us. And we've picked up on that theme frequently in Scripture. Remain faithful to God. This, if we go to 1 Corinthians, the latter part of chapter 2 into chapter 3 up to verse 15, 2:14 to 3:15, we see that Paul talking here calls us to be mature, not to be worldly where we fight and get caught up over status and symbols, but we are to be mature and have a relationship with God. And I think these two readings can merge together quite nicely. Joseph is learning to be mature. He is learning to trust God. It's quite a tough lesson for Joseph, but he is rewarded greatly for that maturity and his trust and faith in God. And faith is not simply some kind of blind leap of faith and then everything will be rosy. No, faith actually sometimes requires that we work out our salvation. We have to persevere. We cry into our pillow at night, but we remain faithful to God. And Joseph certainly is learning that lesson. Perhaps we too must learn that lesson. Life can throw a curved ball at us. Life can be incredibly unfair. Our friends and workmates and people over us can turn against us, sometimes in the blink of an eye, and entirely unfairly. Remain faithful to God. Remain faithful to who you are and your relationship with God. And in a sense, let God deal with some of those issues. So folks, have a good day. We'll chat again tomorrow, and we'll see what happens to Joseph hereafter. God bless.